I'll record to this. All right, so here we go. You guys seeing my oh, the screen? There you go. So um, this is the result actually of one of our members, Chris Micklack, working with Austin of McFarlane, where um, this topic came up of, what can McFarlane do for us? And then start telling people, McFarlane is this great sort of alternate supplier to Textron that does much better quality. And, I've been a customer for decades, and I'm surprised that some people don't know that about who McFarlane is. So um, that's what led to this discussion about, all right, let's bring our ideas on what they might be able to do for us. And actually, Bruce Wiley has a really good one. We have three different examples, and then of candidate projects for McFarlane for us as a type. And so let me, are you guys seeing that slide? The
Yes.
first, oh, wait a minute. That's the next slide that's up. Item content to be covered. I figure on YouTube, people just read the slides, right? They're not going to listen to audio. So, there are the three example projects, and we'll let Austin and Abby give their background for the company first. So, if there's not any questions, I guess we'll just go right into that.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can do this whole thing like in 40 minutes would be great, but we'll
Okay.
see how that goes.
We'll get it. We'll
I
get
can
it timed.
advance the slides as you like, Austin or Abby.
Okay. Well, I'll jump in real quick. I'm Austin, as Scott said, I'm Austin Beine. I'm a product development manager at McFarlane. I've been with McFarlane for about 17 years now. Started in the engineering department, ran the engineering department. Now I'm on this side, kind of helping look for ideas and seeing if we can get connected to different groups and help people out as we go. So, Abby, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, so I'm Abby Waddell, and I'm the digital marketing specialist at McFarlane, and I have a lot of different hats. So I run our social media accounts, I deal with sponsorships, advertising, kind of just a little bit of everything. We're a smaller company, so we all just kind of help each other do whatever. And I've been here for about almost 2 years. Isn't that weird? I started as an intern, and they decided to keep me. So, yeah.
Well, it's a shame for you, Abby. It's all old guys here, so you have to be patient with us.
No worries.
Well,
I
great.
actually had the pleasure of meeting Dave McFarlane at Oshkosh a couple of years ago, and I've been a Cessna owner since the 90s, and the company has, I think, offered, a lower cost, higher quality solution to the original Cessna parts in a lot of cases. I know you guys are going to talk about that, but
Yeah.
the history is fantastic, and so we're fortunate to have you guys today. And um, shall I move to the next slide?
Yeah,
Are we
go
ready?
ahead, Scott. Um, you, Scott, you kind of hit it a little bit. So who is McFarlane? As you noted, Dave McFarlane's our founder. Started the business in the late 70s. He started out his career as a spray pilot and worked around the Midwest and South, and had the opportunity to buy the field where we're at right now, K64. And they came in not to set up manufacturing, they came in to run spray operations. But they ended up taking on more and more aircraft over the years. And eventually they got to the point where, they were doing so many airplanes and just feeling like, they weren't getting what they needed from Textron. So they started working on building their own parts. And one thing kind of led to another, and the PMA parts program kind of came along, and that's where they started. And now we're 40 plus years later here. I like this. This is one of our, I think this is one of our later. Oh, we're missing a building. No, we got all the buildings on there. So this is one of the latest pictures of our campus. You can see the field in the background, all grass strip, 3,300 feet, fun stuff. But we've grown. Like Abby says, we're a small company, but when I started, I was employee number 34. And we were in one little building that you can see down in the bottom left corner. That's where we started, and that was all that was here, and that was in 2007. And since then, we've kind of grown up and grown out. And the big part came from Dave. Dave's really a proponent of making things, making parts that are better, providing more value to the people, and really trying to keep everybody flying. And that'll around the McFarlane people, you'll hear that a couple of times come up. So I'll get off this slide real quick, but like I said, we've been there for about 40 plus years. We've got about 140, 150 employees. Most of that's manufacturing staff, but there is a group of us that are dedicated to new development and new product. So in that time in the PMA space, we hold over 3,600 PMA parts. That to me, I'm very proud of. I helped put a lot of those out there. And for a PMA company, that's a pretty good number of parts. And with Dave's background in Cessna, that's the majority of where we've started our business. So there's a lot of offerings on PMA for the Cessna aircraft. In the last couple of years, we've also started to become a distributors now, and Abby probably has better numbers on this than I do. But we're distributing, I think, over 30,000, at least 30,000 line items in our inventory right now. So we are. Abby, do you want to say something?
No, it's probably more up to 40,000 now. We've been adding a ton of new projects. So
yeah, we continue to grow. So and not only are we doing the PMA and the distribution, but we are an OEM manufacturer. So can't really disclose all the aircraft, but you've flown on every one that we put parts on. We're all over the industry. So it's funny, we'll put out a PMA and sometimes that OEM will actually show up at our door seeing if they can install it on their aircraft. And so things like that happen to us. So that's a little bit of a background. Scott, you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah. Is it fair to say that McFarlane is like the OEM supplier of engine controls, for example, for a number of airframe manufacturers? I mean, that was my understanding, is that one of the beginnings of the company.
Well, that is, it's one of the core product lines. So the engine control is a big part, the push-pull control, and we do a lot of OEM supplies for Textron, for when Mooney was alive, although we still supply Mooney, Piper. Pretty much anybody that's got a push-pull control, we have something on one of those aircraft. And then, other things, the other big product line early on were seat rails. And so we've really grown up and continue to grow on the seat rail side. So,
yeah, I was going to say, I was telling you about my seat rail project now, and our airplanes are 40 some years old, and some of them might be on their second set of seat rails, but
yeah,
that's a whole thing. I was going to say, my airplane happens to have an airplane's engine conversion. And I believe that part of that conversion is new engine controls, and they look like you guys. I'm pretty sure they're right from you guys. So.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Is that the right? Oh, there.
Yeah.
Going too fast here. Sorry. Whoa. There we go.
And this is, I put this slide together real quick, and I've kind of hit most of these. But again, within the PMA market, there are particular areas that we think we're pretty good at. If in general, when we're asked, what kind of a PMA company is McFarlane, we're clearly an airframe company. Firewall back. We pretty much have something somewhere on most GA aircraft. And that's continuing, our development is going to continue along those same lines. So, as Scott, I think mentioned there, we're push-pull controls. Flight control cables is a big part of our PMA. We're offering more and more fuel system, seat components, a lot of different hardware, skins. It really does run the gamut. And so just as kind of a little bit of a philosophy behind McFarlane, we love to develop new product, and we love to develop it along these lines. However, we want to make sure everybody can get what they need, even if they're not doing something that we offer. So that's where we bring our distributors on to try to fill some of those gaps. And in the last couple of years, McFarlane has actually gone out, and a lot of the companies that we've done business with or have distributed for that we really like, that have a niche, we've acquired them. So in the last few years, We picked up Flight Resource. Flight Resource holds STCs for mounting the MT props to most of the Cessna single engine, Piper, and the Bonanzas and Cirrus as well. So Airforms is a company. They're based up in Wasilla, Alaska. They do engine baffling. They do some really nice product out of there. We like them. They are very skilled at what they do. CJ Aviation, we acquired a couple years ago. You may know them. They're auxiliary fuel pumps and a few other kind of pumps. And then most recently, PMA Products, based out of North Carolina. Their product line is similar to ours, but really focused more on Piper. So kind of filled in some gaps outside of where we are.
What about Tempest, Austin? I don't see you have Tempest listed here.
I don't. Tempest is part of our of the greater
Okay.
the greater company.
Understood.
So so they handle everything kind of firewall forward as if they can. So they do a really good job of that, and we're really close with those guys.
I was thinking of Tempest because for consumables for our type, we're buying oil filters and spark plugs, and as a type that's significant for those in our group, and particularly since we have a discount, a Type Club member discount, which is it's unusual, and we're usually dealing with higher and higher prices, so to get a little price break for consumables is a really nice thing.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate everybody's business. So and hope we can help you guys out going forward. Scott, again,
and how'd you find this airplane?
I don't know. It was just randomly out on the internet. So.
Oh, are you kidding?
No,
are you kidding?
No. I had that.
Okay.
I had that tail number from
earlier
discussions.
I was hoping my airplane wouldn't be so prominent, but here we are.
I put this slide together. I think right after this, we'll get into talking more about some of the ideas you've got. But I'm always surprised. Like I said, I've been around McFarlane for, like I said, almost 17 years. I came to McFarlane with no experience and really understanding with PMA. I honestly got into it because I thought it would be a quick little jaunt of a couple of years to get some good design experience and move along. But I'm still here, and I really enjoyed the PMA side of it, which is the core of what I've always done here. So I didn't know anything about PMA before I started, and I still think a lot of people in the industry don't. PMA is an FAA, and if you guys are all aware of this, I can kind of jump through it quicker, but the FAA started the PMA program, I believe, late 50s, early 60s, with the intent of trying to find alternative methods. Even back then, they thought parts were expensive, so they were trying to find alternatives. So they started the program, like I said, late 50s, early 60s. It was under a different name and a couple of different names as it grew up. And it kind of came into its own starting in the late 80s and early 90s. And unfortunately, a lot of people got into the business that had no business being in it. And some of those very early PMA parts were not very good.
Right.
And really tarnished what PMA can be. But I think at least 30 years later now, past that, we hopefully are showing you what PMA can do. So, like I said, PMA is a government or FAA program that was put together. It's an alternative. So essentially, we reverse engineer a part. We submit that to the FAA. They review our engineering, make sure that we've got a safe product, so that they issue a design approval. And then that goes on to they changed all the names now, but the CMS now, Certificate Management Group or Section, they come in and inspect our manufacturing, and then they actually give us approval. They're the ones that actually issue supplements. So what's nice about PMA is you know that somebody's looked at the design, and you know that somebody's looked at how it's being manufactured. So we are far more scrutinized than the OEs when it comes to what our parts can do. So that's fun, and I think that's a good part of it. Just a couple other highlights. Most of PMA parts that are available are U.S. made. There are some being made offshore, but for the most part, they're here. We're here. We're manufacturing here. The intent again is to find an alternative, affordable alternative. You guys all know how quickly parts prices have gone up in the last 4 or 5 years. It's unreal, and it's been doing it for years, but it really seems incredible in the last few years. And then, through COVID, there were a lot of shortages. And one of the tenets of McFarlane is that we really do try to overstock so that when you need that part, it's there. So even if it's not a McFarlane part, the PMA offerings, there is always hopefully something out there that you can get on your aircraft. The last part, I think, is really the last two things here are really important. I really believe for the legacy fleet, like you guys are operating, PMA is going to be your future. Textron, all of the manufacturers, as best I can tell, are happy that they sold those aircraft when they did, but they are really focused on just selling new airplanes and would hope that we would just fold those up and come and buy a new one. So they're not supporting the legacy fleet. And you guys are right in that weird little spot where you've got kind of a smaller offshoot of a larger fleet. And I think you could tell me better than I, but getting parts for your type aircraft are getting harder and harder to find. So PMA is going to be there for you. The other part, and this is the part that I don't think people really understand, because one of the order that we follow, we have to perform as well or better than the original. So from a structural standpoint, you're getting something that strong, or in a lot of cases, we have the opportunity, because this is our business, it's not building airplanes, it's building parts. We can really look at these components and improve them. One of the things that we do when we're developing new product, we try to get beat up ones. We try to get ones that have come off the airplane. We try to find broken ones just to kind of see where the failure modes are. And then also we go to the FAA website, the Service Difficulty Report server. So different mechanics at different times will log in when they're having issue with parts. And we typically can go out there and look at a component and get a really good feeling for, hey, this part is corroding, or they're having an issue with fatigue, or you name it, we've seen it and it's out there. So we take all that information and bring it into the component, also with some hands-on experience about maybe a better way of doing it. And so that's what our goal is when we're making a PMA part, is to really make it better, hopefully solve a problem that you've got. And then even in certain cases, you'll buy a part that is highly similar looking to the OE part. Most often there wasn't much to do there, but a lot of times in those cases we've improved the coating. So you've got a better corrosion resistance, or we've upgraded the material most often to something that's better suited for vibration than some of the tempered aluminums that get in there. So I really think it really is something people need to know more about. And as it all grows, I think people will start to understand it. Scott, you brought up Tempest. I was talking with John Herman last week. He was coming through the office, who's one of the part of the leadership over there at Tempest, and we were talking about an IA renewal. And he had been to one where one of the engine manufacturers had stepped up there and had said, hey, you know what, we are not authorizing anybody to put PMA parts on this engine. We don't encourage anybody to do it. And John said he waited until he got off the podium and then just kind of tore into him. And we understand from a competitive standpoint that, hey, if we're PMA and a seal you've got in the engine, great, don't be our friends. But the message that the guy was sending is that PMA all over was not good. And really, we don't care who's doing it. We believe that PMA, again, is going to be the better option, and that any opportunity you get to interface with a PMA part is great.
For those of us that have been around for a while, we know that OEM parts can be less than the quality that you'd like to have it. Let me articulate a little bit here about what you mentioned about being able to make a part better than original. I threw this into your slides just for everybody to see, because if you're not doing this on your nose gear, we're going to do a separate Zoom on best practices for nose gear ops and maintenance. But this is our nose gear on R-182RG that has the McFarlane nose landing gear seal kit. Here's the part number. I put the link in it in the slide deck. after the last 4 years and over 300 hours, we've never serviced the strut because of this double seal in the cross section compared to the old just round O-ring that would occasionally roll out of place. I'm kind of in shock. I used to have to service ours every year. This is 4 years, and this thing hasn't leaked any fluid or any nitrogen, which is nuts. So, and my brother, who I think's on the call, has had the same experience with his Belanca Viking nose strut that's using this. They call it the quadrangle seal because of the shape of the. But if you guys aren't using this, you need to. We'll talk about it again. But next time you do your nose strut, have your mechanic put it in because it's a game changer.
Yeah,
That's just one example of what you guys do that's better than original.
yeah, and it's pretty simple. That's the fun part. It didn't really take too much. We kind of stumbled onto the quad seals and used them, and like, wow, this is way better. So they've made their way into a lot of our products now.
Yeah, it's remarkable. So just anyway, there's your last slide. There's contact information. There's Dave McFarlane right there. So we're gonna dive into 3 candidate projects for parts as examples, and hopefully other people maybe have some other ideas, but these are 3 that Austin and Abby are looking at. And so shall we dive into that?
Yeah, let's go.
Here we go. All right. So this was the original one that Chris was talking about. Which is the nose landing gear bumper stop. Some people don't even have these on their airplane, but if you look on the top of your nose gear well, there's a pad, a little rubber pad where the nose strut will actually be metal to metal contact with the top of the gear well if you don't have a rubber pad there. And this is a picture of mine, which is a piece of flat rubber, which is probably not as good as the one that the original shows here that has like a little thicker cross section to dampen vibration. But where are you guys on this project, Austin?
That's part of the next set of analysis that I'm going to bring to our team when we meet next week, I think. I've talked to a bunch of people about it. We like a lot of parts of this. This kind of part is really in McFarlane's wheelhouse. It just happens that we've got one of the people down from Alaska whose machinery would be able to turn this stuff out in a heartbeat. Yeah. And so we're interested in it. And I think we'll be able to find a solution to get there. And whatever, Scott's, yours is way better off than Chris's, which was just a metal piece.
A lot of them don't have anything, and I don't even. It's a pre-flight item for me because I don't want to trash my nose strut, right? And I think a lot of people don't even look for it. But we're going to do a nose landing gear thing separately. But if you guys, when you're doing your pre-flight, look, it's right next to the limit switch here. Look for this little rubber square so that you'll also see where it contacts your nose strut. You can see it on the front side of your nose strut where it touches. So it would definitely be a plus to have one that had a thicker section of rubber like is shown here. And there's the part number. And I don't even know if Textron maybe if they have it as a 6-month wait, or I don't know. Like Chris said, they wanted like some stupid price and wait 9 months or something. So
yeah, I thought that, I think when he first went looking for them, I want to say he said maybe $700 for that piece.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And then he challenged Textron. They come down. I think they're now 400, but they won't stock them. I think you've got to buy it before.
Ridiculous. So, that's another thing. Actually, we contemplate owner produced parts at some point. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. If they don't work out for you, then we're going to figure out a way to do it because, it's a simple thing. So, anybody have any comments on this? Have seen this in the field? Try to replace theirs, anything like that?
I'll look tomorrow.
Right, well, I guess
yeah, the other thing too, I'd love to have feedback. I've talked to both Scott and Chris on this, but one of the things that I would like to do, I can, from McFarlane's standpoint, we could turn a part out like that, but that's only one part of the system. So if you're down there looking around, if there's other, rub spots or bumpers or things that are part of that landing gear, even the mains, or any other part of the airframe, if you see it, definitely pass it
We were talking.
along.
Yeah, you and I were talking the other day about making a main gear saddle with a rubber, component to it to stop
Yeah,
that abrasion, which is
yeah,
a big deal. That's another big opportunity for us to.
yeah.
But
I still can't believe they're using metal on metal to
no,
do
that's
that.
yeah, that's original with the airplanes. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's actually I didn't think to go out and take that picture and include it in here, but I guess that's down the road. Okay, so we'll move to project number two. I believe this is oh, here we go. There's another picture. There's the pad. I stole that picture from elsewhere, but there you can see how it's supposed to look. Um, so, all right. So here we go. Bruce Wiley, are you?
Yep, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's all yours.
Okay. Um, the first picture on your left, main gear actuator, is the part we're discussing. My issue started with the well-known brake line swivel on the end of that piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I purchased mine from McFarlane at quite a bit less than what I could obtain it for anywhere else, so I bought it from McFarlane. That was just the start of my troubles. That the brake line would have been no big deal had I not found this other problem in the process of replacing it. What I found was the end cap. There's a better picture.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The second one was showing the gear on the end of the spline shaft where the actuator goes on. That piece of safety wire there.
Yeah.
Yep.
On the end cap, that drawing in the parts book shows part 37 or 37A.
Yeah. Doesn't show
Shows it
anything.
as being one
Yeah.
unit and one part number. So I have Wentworth right across the airport from me here at Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a junkyard guy, but I wound up trying to find. I found a new old stock end cap shown on the left from BAS
Mm-hmm.
parts, and they assured me that that little bushing in between the two pieces was included. And back and forth for like 10 days, and I bought that end cap on the left, and it had a neat little improvement on it. If you
Mm-hmm.
notice that there's the one on the left is the new one.
Mm-hmm.
It has a little flange or a lip on the steel bushing that goes inside of the end cap.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the parts book, that's all one piece, including the old bushing that's in the middle of it that I cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what prompted all this was that bushing, and I wound up taking it off with a Dremel tool because it's a pressed on bushing.
Yeah. You can see there's the.
Heat shrink is the correct term.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you can see on the picture on the right that that was the effort to grind it off, to get it off the shaft without damaging it any further. So they shipped out the new part. Obviously, it didn't include the bushing. I wouldn't have even dug into it this far, except for I couldn't get the safety wire off the end of the shaft.
Oh, wow.
To re-safety wire
Oh boy.
The brake swivel on. So, one thing led to another. What you're
Yeah.
seeing on the picture on the right is the prototype bushing that we made. And the factory bushing had pushed out to the point where that wire was pinched
Mm-hmm.
halfway off, and it was the bushing was migrating away from the gear and off the shaft.
Yikes.
So I don't know how, and it was actually spinning on the shaft, but it was still tight, sort of. So, one thing, it was a better part of a day to get that bushing off.
I bet.
But that aluminum bushing that was made there, includes this little flange, and I'm going to hold that up.
Yep.
So there's that little flange keeps it from migrating off the shaft.
Yeah,
and it fits in
right there.
So what's I'm trying to figure out, Bruce, what the purpose.
Here's my assembly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Prototype. And you can see the little flange. I'm going to leave it sticking out.
Yep.
That keeps it from migrating off the cap.
Okay.
Through the cap. It shouldn't protrude out any further than this piece.
Yep.
I see. Okay.
And we actually, on the final product, we actually shortened that up a little bit. So the brass one, this is the finished product. I'll try to get that so you can see.
Yeah.
It's got a little grease groove in the middle of it.
Yep.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So the bushing is heated to, I think we baked it at 325 or 350 degrees for 20 minutes and slid it on the shaft so that it was uptight to the gear as far as it would go up to the spline. And let it cool off. And then so the bushing is supposed to fit tight on the shaft, just a heat shrunk form of tightness. And then the bushing on the new design fits up tight on the inside. This would be the inside of the end cap so that it can't migrate out any further than the safety wire. So the whole goal was to keep that bushing from contacting the safety wire at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
The second thing that we did was we tried to change the grease groove isn't accessible to grease. In the original design, there's no means for grease from the area where the gear is to find its way out to the grease groove. And I believe what set all this in motion was it finally seized on the end cap. So to the point where it wouldn't spin that half a turn that it needs to rotate. Because this side has clearance. So it'll rotate. Okay. So we tried to solve two problems with the original design and we succeeded. I'm in the commercial industrial rental properties business, have a machine shops that rent from me.
Yeah.
The guy that made these parts for me is a 30-year tenant, him and his dad. And he measured once. He made two prototypes out of aluminum. One was a loose fit. If you can advance the slide there, Scott, just a tad.
That's all I got.
He made the two aluminum prototypes. One was loose on the shaft, and the other one was tight. The guy came down and measured once. We had one little adjustment to make. Other than that, it was perfect on the first try. He makes gun parts.
There you go.
Very skilled individual. And then we tapped in that grease zerk, and I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. Whether it's right, wrong, or immaterial, is better than what was there. So we're trying to get grease to the bushing. In the service manual, it actually talks about don't over lubricate that gear area. Well, it's kind of a fine line between no lubrication and very little.
Right.
So
I see grease coming out of mine a little bit. I might have put in too much grease somewhere else, and I see it coming out of around the edges of the cap a little bit.
I think if I had to do it over again, maybe some never sees in that area might not be a bad idea when you're putting the end cap back on, or some wheel bearing grease or something to make sure that that rotates and doesn't spin on the shaft, because I caught mine just in time.
How many hours on your airplane, Bruce?
4,200.
Man, I've got more than you do.
So they don't those other slides that were there,
Yep.
even keep going.
That's all. Wait. That one?
I'm looking for an end view, that maybe even that first one that you had.
That's my airplane, I think. Yeah.
Okay. It's covered
You can
with
see
grease.
Yep, you can see it coming out. Yep.
But
That's
mine,
my
I could
airplane.
visually see about 3/16 of an inch or so of brass bushing sticking out that rubbed up against that safety wire.
Wow.
That was my only clue that there was something wrong, other than once I got the swivel off, then it was readily apparent what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But unless you're really tuned into looking at that, and I wasn't, if the swivel wouldn't have leaked, I would have never noticed.
And so,
Thank
Bruce,
God.
if you don't catch that, then you've ruined that actuator. Is that the outcome, or
Not the actuator? You would ruin the whole shaft.
The whole shaft there. Okay.
And it only rotates 180 degrees, but rotation's rotation. But it wasn't spinning on the right spot. But if you look in that parts book, this bushing doesn't even exist.
No, this is all. No one ever. They didn't ever expect anybody to get in this far.
My
I've never seen this before.
My IA friend is 75 years old, and his claim to fame is jet turbine helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
He got a hold of a guy that he knew at Textron, and the guy actually chuckled when we brought this bushing up, and he said, "We haven't sold those in 2 decades."
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, keep in mind, this also applies. These actuators are common to the 210,
Yes.
to R-type, and to the 172 RG. So, for McFarlane, this is something you're pioneering here.
And Chris, we talked about that, or Scott, we talked about that the other day. I'm trying to get back to the illustrations so I can see a little bit better. But yeah.
Yeah, this doesn't show you anything, unfortunately. This is a lot better. Actually, this is my airplane. That's one of your swivels. I forgot. I inserted my airplane into your pictures, Bruce, because I thought this was a good example of. You can see I've got the safety wired service bulletin for the screws that back out, and then I put torque seal on them because I check them every year.
Yes.
And anyway, so yep.
So everything was fine except for that little bushing, and what should have been a half a day job to replace the swivel turned into almost 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a major item. Also, thank God. I mean, I could see you going down the runway without one main, a main gear missing if it doesn't come out all the way.
If it were the actuator to start climbing gears, or who knows what could happen.
Yep.
But I mean, that on that center picture with the new one with the grease zerk on it.
Yep.
That's as far out as that brass bushing should protrude, no further.
Yep.
And mine was out triple that. So we fit the piece in place with the end cap, and made sure that we had end play, that we weren't forcing anything out of place with putting that inside flange. So the guy really did his homework, and we spent the time to make this right.
That's impressive.
I'm semi-retired. I made my money, and I don't really care. But the guy that actually did the CNC work, my tenant, I would like to see him be able to make a few of these parts, and he didn't even charge me. He said, you've been so kind to me over the decades that just get out of here. So people like that are pretty rare nowadays.
Yeah, that's great.
Maybe he could make a pile for McFarlane to have in stock. So
Um,
when
I
we
think
need them.
he made it. It takes like a minute and 15 seconds on his CNC to make them.
Sure, sure.
And he's got all the data, and I'll put two people together all day long. That's kind of what I do. Um,
Beautiful.
so we'll get together with Austin and company, and I don't really care to go through the PMA process, but if some of this can rub off on Dan, my machinist, that would be fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make the first 50 or 100 parts. I got half of them right here in my hand. I think it's a big improvement over the original. I still haven't figured out exactly how to get grease to that center groove reliably. But
well, it's a huge improvement what you've already done.
Yeah. But I think that should be part of everybody's annual inspection to make sure that brass isn't protruding out the face of their cap to the point of rubbing on that safety wire.
Well, that's why this is, I look at this, but now I'm going to look at it a whole lot closer. That's me right there. So,
well, at least you're getting grease.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Any questions from anybody? I'm not always the best at explaining things, but
no, it was excellent. Your pictures are fantastic. It's a great story.
Yeah.
I think all of us now this is an annual inspection item for all of us now. So very important.
Unless the grease came through the main bushing on that actuator shaft area and through the gear, there's no way it would ever make it to that end cap.
Mm-hmm.
No. So that's why the little experiment with the greaser came into play.
Yeah. And there's no seals in there. It's all kind of metal to metal to seal off.
Yes. Yep.
Yep.
It's all kind of snug fit.
And he was even wise enough to make the part out of brass light, which has some oil impregnated into the part, into the brass itself. Well, so there's some lubrication there.
Maybe there ought to be a gasket. I don't know, but the fear might be the gasket material will get inside the actuator. But you can see that's not a tight fit.
No, and I wasn't even indicating it needed a seal. It's just always interesting when they do those metal to metal. That means it's close, right?
Yep.
So,
yep.
But the tolerances are pretty tight.
Yeah, they are.
We slammed that first brass bushing on, and I was just kind of giggly that Dan's aluminum prototype fit so well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And he had his, when you swell that piece up, slide it on the shaft, you would expect the outer dimension to be maybe a little tight on the end cap so it couldn't rotate. No, it was exactly perfect. The guy is really sharp.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So, Bruce, you said you made a couple of those. Do you know what the variation on the diameters were when he was making them? Did he give you any kind of span of what was fitting?
Like
and
a
what
thousandths and a half.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you guys discuss that offline so you can figure something out, and we're going to proceed here.
So he made me a whole pot full of them. So if somebody's in a bind,
oh man,
if somebody's in a bind,
hold on,
I could figure out something. But I'm not a PMA guy. That's going to have to be somebody else.
Well, that's an owner-approved part. That is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Say that again.
It's an owner. There's a process for owner-approved parts. That's what that would, that would be. But I don't know if you guys. We're gonna keep moving here because we're 45 minutes in, and as long as you guys are connected, that's what matters. Did anybody's looking in the chat right now? Russ Spain just posted something. He said he has to go to work, but he's wondering if he gave a part number. It's the shock mount that attaches the exhaust stack near the exits. Yeah, I know this is a pretty generic part, pretty simple. I've actually messed with mine a little bit. Wondering if it's available, but I guess it is available, but very expensive. I need to replace mine. They're the ones where the rubber gets, from the heat of the exhaust stack. the rubber starts to get dried out, and it's a pretty simple part. Can you see that, Austin, in the chat?
Does he have an illustration? Oh, yeah.
He's got a picture of a part too in the chat. Yeah, if you pull the chat up.
Oh, wow. No. Take a look. I'll take a look. What
Yeah.
is that?
Okay.
I can see the part number. Yeah.
Afraid to ask how much it is.
Yeah, I wonder how much it is. I bet you they get a Textron's going to want. Yeah, they'll be very proud of something like that.
It's bad when they don't tell you the price.
Yeah.
If you go, I used to go to Yingling, or I used to go to Textron and throw the part number in, but usually Yingling gives the price quicker. But I'm going to continue on our slide stuff here, just because we want to proceed for the for later viewing. So this is another project that if you guys aren't familiar with this service bulletin, hello. Somebody got to mute something.
Let's shut it off. That was me.
Oh, okay. This is the downlock pin service bulletin, and I brought this up with Austin. If you haven't done this service bulletin, we're going to talk about it at a later date. But this is there are actually nose gear collapses as a result of this, the roll pin breaking, and then the downlock pin coming loose, and then nose gear collapse. It's happened lots of times, and to the point where FAA put a service bulletin out about it, in the 90s. So we're talking, and the thing is, there's a simple tool and these downlock pins that Textron wants something like $4,000 or $5,000 for. And this is something that's sort of in McFarlane's wheelhouse. And I need to forward you, Austin, the contact for that guy that I know that was making these for Mooney.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty simple part. Actually, I
No,
asked my brother for that.
Yeah, no, I've talked to a couple different people at the office about that. We're excited about it. It fits your aircraft, and it goes through a number of other aircraft.
Yes.
And it looks like it's, relatively simple fix. It shouldn't be what they're trying to charge you for that.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff there. So I really do think this one could be viable to help. So
yeah,
I
think it's a good one for owner operators, because this is a few hundreds of dollars in parts that can avoid propeller strike and engine overhaul, engine tear down. So it's pretty important for those of us that are running these things. So I think that's all we got.
Okay.
Can you there you go. There's wow. $1,172?
Yeah, that's insane.
Holy smokes. That's remarkable.
No, that's greedy.
These big companies, I'm not even sure I used to work for a big company. They don't even pay attention to, a $1,200 part doesn't even warrant interest from most of those corporate guys. So.
And again, I would not even venture to say where Textron's coming from it, but our experience really, to me, is that they just trying to get away from the legacy fleets, and that's what they leave you with, unfortunately. So
yep. Yeah, and I know I replaced the rubber on one of mine recently, and I just reused the entire, the metal portion of it, but but maybe there's an opportunity here for improvement and something that's reasonable. So
yeah. We'll take a look at all that. Well, first off, I appreciate you guys bringing the ideas. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about these. I asked Scott to put one of the emails in and share with amongst yourselves the address PMA at McFarlane Aviation that comes in. There's about 6 or 7 of us that will get that, and whenever we're at a show, that's the one that I recommend anybody to send ideas. It's as simple as you're going through and you happen to see something, may not even be something for you, but you're like, this doesn't look right. Drop it into that. Or like I said, the ones we enjoy are when you're really having a problem. Please get in touch with us and see what we can do. I wanted to caution everybody, not everything that we look at we can do. And the one thing that not troubles, but that gets you is when we've identified a product that we'd like to go after, some of the development time can extend out, unfortunately. So
Sure.
it does take a little bit of time, and like I said, not every one of them is a winner, but this is what McFarlane is here for. It's a big part of what we're trying to do is to keep these legacy aircraft moving along and do the best we can to help you. So, like I said, if you have any ideas, send them that way. You can call into McFarlane. They find ways to connect you to me. Abby, do we have any other ways that they can reach us?
You can get my email too if you would like. It's abigailw@mcfarlaneaviation.com. Yeah, are you guys going to be going to any trade shows? Sun and Fun is coming up. Anybody in the Florida area?
I'll be at Sun and Fun.
Yeah.
I'd like to visit about this bushing.
Yeah, we'll have a lot
That's
of
great.
booth specials too if you want to stop by our booth. I'll be there.
There was some question about Lord shimmy dampeners for the RG fleet,
Mm-hmm.
whether they actually exist or not. Nobody's seen. There's
ahead, sir.
two schools of thought: either they do or they don't, and nobody seems to know. They say it's a sure thing that no, you can't get it. And then somebody else pops up and said, "Yeah, you can."
It was a larger diameter dampener, Bruce. Is that what you're saying?
Nothing else fit.
Huh.
But it was a Lord dampener versus the OEM part.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't touched mine, so I don't know about that. What do you have on now, Bruce? Do you have the OEM original?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys
I'm
run
not
into
sure
a
I've
lot of
ever-
shimmy issues?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Keep having to rebuild it about twice a year. I've had them shear off the spring pin between the plunger on and the shaft, shear it right off.
Wow.
Really? That's got to be more going on there than a shimmy dampener. I would think it would cause that.
Yeah, we're trying to narrow it down, but we haven't found it yet.
And
Oh, boy.
the biggest thing that we would always recommend, and Bruce, you probably already have done that, but all those different connection points all the way down, making sure that those are all shim tight.
Yep.
A lot of people, like, I'm shimmying and they never go and look, and it's really the hardware down below that isn't tight that causes that. But if you've looked at it, then interesting.
Not so sure it's not tire issues.
That's another thing.
That can mask itself.
Yeah. We had one last year on a straight leg 182 that, it turned out that the mechanic didn't have adequate torque on the axle nuts, which kind of shocked me. Yeah, you think, like it's the simplest stuff it couldn't possibly be, but I'm not, that's just one of those examples that's different than ours, I know, but.
Yeah. Well, it's a good reminder out there, and it's a shame I was at, like, I think I was just mentioning, I was at an AI renewal up in Nebraska a couple weeks ago, and they're always trying to get more kids into their program. The number of mechanics that are out there are either being pulled away to like the big airlines, or they're just
Right.
Kids aren't coming up through it, and it's a heck of a career for somebody. But you're left with a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, so you got to really be careful.
Yep.
You got to really make sure that you're double checking, even somebody. Well, hopefully you found somebody you trust that's working on it, but keep your eyeballs on it, because it's an interesting time. I would say it's been very positive. You see all the amount of pilots that are coming up through the systems, but talking to the schools, they're getting a ton of mechanics as well. So hopefully,
that's good.
At some point, the backfill the missing manpower that's there. So
Probably not in our lifetime, but I'm going to stop the recording now, guys. I think we're done with. So.